Welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. That's Bud Elliott. That's Danny Cannell. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and all across the 24/7 Sports Facebook network. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and look, we've already got the chat popping here on a Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Great spring ball primer as we are going to start to have some more information coming out from spring practice across the country. We are going to have some spring games that are going to be starting. Like Michigan's coming up this Saturday, but really the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, a whole bunch of our favorite teams to talk about, all going to be in action. So this is a good time for us to get started. We are going to be breaking down some of the quarterback battles that have our attention here in spring practice. But first, we want to remind you that it was because of you that we have advanced to being a finalist in the American football category of the Sports Podcast Award. In the episode description here on YouTube and in the episode description on the audio side, we've included a link because we need you to vote. You can only vote once. Voting runs through April 6th. Let's bring this trophy home. Go ahead and vote in the American football category for the Sports Podcast Awards. Again, the link in the episode description here on YouTube and also on the audio side. Danny's already voted multiple times.
I have.
It was good.
I'm all over it. Did you guys see what I did in the Did you guys see what I did in the worksheet pre-show? Oh, I was doing some work, show prep.
I was shocked.
We have a shared documentary that we're doing. I had 3 quarterback battles. Like, ooh, I'm writing this one at the bottom, and I look up, and they're already in there, all 3 of them.
Well, first of all, it's a document, not a documentary. The doc in Google Docs.
It's a document.
I got an alert that a new person has opened the doc for the first time ever. It was Danny Cannell. I was like, whoa, Danny found the doc.
That's not true. There's been at least one other time I've opened it. At least one other time. When we had our
wife
spring
asked,
break
like, did you do
schedule.
this?
I had to check the spring break schedule. That was the other time I checked it.
Yeah, we've got a great week ahead here. As shout out producer Jordan. He's taking a little time, so we're spinning all of it ourselves. The inmates are running the asylum. We have no oversight right now, such as things go here in the last week of March.
Tennessee got knocked out of the tournament, so Jordan took off.
FAU. Hey, listen.
Is that bereavement leave technically?
How about Tom Herman being better luck for FAU than Steve Sarkisian was for Texas? I mean, when Steve Sarkisian rolled up into the building, you got to think Texas fans were like, uh-oh, this is going to end with a blown lead. We are certainly not going to be able to hold on to this. This is going to be disastrous.
I just can't believe Texas came up short in a big spot. You never see that from Texas.
It's so weird. Hey, look, let's begin right there with the because I already saw in the chat someone who knows exactly how we do things here. Arch Manning. Yeah, Joe knows what's up. Arch Manning. Quarterback battle. Texas starting quarterback spring practice. Quinn Ewers is the incumbent starter. He was excellent in flashes, and if we put together like a highlight reel, like, man, that guy, no question, that is QB1 through and through. Arch Manning comes in as the most famous recruit in the modern era, and with a rating from scouts that it's perfect, right, Bud? Isn't he a 100?
Yeah, I believe he's right, number 1 in the country for us. And
Ewers is a 100 too.
Yeah.
Steve Sarkisian has 2 hundies out here. Spring ball at Texas. What is the expectation? Because this has clearly been an ongoing conversation, online, offline, and I feel like we both have heard people who should know that Arch is in the mix, and people who should know that Arch is probably going to redshirt. So as we sit here on March 27th, spring game coming up on April 15th, what are we expecting from the Texas quarterback battle?
I think they probably will stage it up as a battle, right? Quinn Ewers last year missed too many throws. His arm talent is clearly there, and we know he hurt the hand or the finger or whatever it was. And I think that showed for a couple games after that, which was sort of that October range. I mean, he missed a lot of passes against. Was it Oklahoma State? I think he just looked very off. But look, Steve Sarkisian does a tremendous job of scheming up open throws for his guys. and you have to hit them. So I think that I have confidence in Quinn Ewers progressing, understanding the offense a little more, hitting those throws on time and accurately. And I think that Arch Manning will redshirt, but I don't know that, right? And because Sark does such a good job of scheming stuff open, and because I think that offensive line will be a lot better, and the offense really could be better even though it loses Bijan. If Ewers is still missing open throws, maybe Arch doesn't redshirt. Maybe Arch takes it.
I think it's Quinn's job. I think that it's probably best for Quinn to have the competition, though. Like, I don't think you should present it as like, I don't think this is what Sark's doing either. I just think that the plan is probably to have Arch come in redshirt. I think that has been the plan all along, because it's not like Arch didn't know Quinn Ewers was there when he committed to Texas. But I think that for the sake of the team, you want to have an actual competition. You can't just let Quinn Ewers go into the spring and into the summer thinking that the job is his, because as Bud mentioned, as good and as talented as he is, and I've heard people talk about how he's the best quarterback in the country. I mean, I've heard people say that, believe it or not. I think that he needs somebody pushing him. And I think every quarterback, every player at every position is always helped by having somebody who's pushing them for the job. It keeps them working. It keeps them improving on what they need to fix. So I think if you're the Longhorns, you want Arch pushing him for the gig this spring. You want Arch pushing him for the gig this summer and into the fall, even if your plan is that he is the starter. So I think we are going to see the competition until the season starts. I think Quinn Ewers will be the starter. And unless something goes wrong, then he's going to probably remain the starter all season long.
I'm a little more bullish on Arch Manning. I'm kind of changing my mind on the red shirt aspect to it. If Quinn Ewers balls out this year, he's eligible to go, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So he's gone. Then you got 2 years, 3 years potentially if you want him to ball out if you're Arch Manning. So why wouldn't you be the primary backup and start getting reps if you're not the starter? But I'm more inclined also – the quarterback position is about intangibles, right? We can all because let's just say they're on equal footing as far as gifts, right? They're both extremely, they've got all the tools, the physical skill set that you would want. I'm not so sure that Quinn Ewers has the intangibles like checkbox, like he's got the it factor where guys gravitate toward him. I don't know if Arch Manning has that yet, but I know he's seen a lot better examples of what it takes to showcase it. I mean, even a little thing, it was kind of stupid. This is going to be annoying because we're going to get a lot of this. But it was like Arch Manning's on spring break and he's training on spring break. That was over the weekend. I'm like, but the guy did announce one quick, it was not a big publicity stunt when he went to Texas. Like, I think he's very focused and intentional for a young high school athlete to come in there. And I think he wants to play. I think he wants to pressure. So I think it's Quinn Ewers' job to lose, but I think Arch Manning will challenge him for it.
I think it's going to be a mistake to say out the gate, Arch, you are redshirting. Quinn Ewers, like, injury history. Like, how much, like, what is the full body of work of Quinn Ewers? Like, what is the chance that he ends up, taking a knock? I would much rather, have, to your point, Danny, I would much rather have Arch Manning lined up as QB2 and, like, being ready to go, being on, in those meetings, in all the preparation, going through as if he's going to be out there and be the starter, because Quinn Ewers gets a little nick. If what it was a fingernail, what was our rumor about, like, accuracy wasn't good because he had banged his finger up a little bit. Anything that is going to lead to lesser production at the quarterback position, I think that you've got to have Manning ready to go. And also Manning's probably a 3 and done. Like, don't commit to a red shirt. And if you're Texas football, miss out on whatever he can be able to offer. And that's sort of what Dougie's on right here.
That was what I was saying too. Like, why redshirt? You can come in, you get valuable reps too. Let's say Ewers gets the breath knocked out. Like, hey, you got to get a series like against Bama. Like, those are valuable reps you can get in those moments, even if you're just the backup. And I mean, look what happened against Bama last year. He did get knocked out of the game there too. So you're going to want your best player to back him up, and I have a strong feeling that's going to be Arch Manning.
Any other thoughts before we take it to the two-time reigning national champions?
The only thought I had is, like, is Malik Murphy still on the roster?
Yes.
I haven't heard anything about him, but I mean, he was a guy we liked a lot coming out of high school. So I'm kind of curious Does he factor into that at all? I mean, he was a true freshman last year.
I mean, he could factor into pushing Manning. Like if Manning gets out there in spring ball or fall camp and it's just not coming together, the battle, like there is a scenario that you could paint for me where Quinn Ewers is the QB1 and Arch on week 1 is QB3, just because coaching staff doesn't feel like everything's put together. They trust Murphy to be able to go out there in that situation where Quinn gets the breath knocked out of him and be able to execute at a higher level.
My prediction is Malik Murphy's in the transfer portal at some point. Because
Before
I mean,
August.
yeah, because like he's competing with Arch for the number 2 job in all reality this spring. But if he loses that job to Arch, because it's like, once Ewers leaves, it's Arch Manning who's going to be his replacement. So if you're Malik Murphy, I mean, maybe he's just competitive as hell and he's like, nah, screw that. I'm going to be trying to beat Arch Manning every single day. But just the way things usually go, I think he's bound for the portal at some point.
Is this the best quarterback room at the Power 5 level?
It's got to be near the top. I mean, talent-wise, you've got 100 rated recruits and another 5-star that's like fighting to finish third.
I think I would rate USC's higher because I'm going to put a lot of weight on the guy that's actually proven it and played at an elite level. Like, so I mean, USC's got a 5-star freshman and they had the Heisman Trophy winner coming back. So for me, that's USC. I'm banking a little more on proving the potential there, which maybe as the recruiting guy on the show, that's a little weird for me to do, but I don't know. Give me USC quarterback room.
Bud says stars don't matter.
Print it. Let's go. Clip it. Print it. The Georgia Bulldogs, we've discussed this quarterback competition a little bit, I guess, last week because Kirby Smart came out, gave the lay of the land. The idea that this would be Carson Beck and Brock Vandagriff sharing first-team reps, Gunnar Stockton getting in the mix as well. Of course, for those who have not been keeping up, offensive coordinator Todd Monken is off to the NFL. He is going to be with the Baltimore Ravens. And to replace him, we do have a new offensive coordinator, but it's the old offensive coordinator, and it's a familiar name. It was a promotion for Mike Bobo up to OC. Georgia Bulldogs spring game, like Texas, also on April 15th. They are, they are underway. We've got a little bit of reports that we can chew on here. We can be quick since we did give a good amount of time to this quarterback battle earlier this month. But just any updated thoughts in terms of where you would be placing your bets here?
I'm still on the Carson Beck train. I think. I mean, he's been in the system the longest. Now we say the system, which is interesting because technically Mike Bobo is running a different offense than what Monken ran. But I do think he's going to run an offense with a lot of similarities, given that Georgia has just won back-to-back national titles, and they look, fairly loaded on offense again. I think they will have to throw the ball around a little bit more as well, because Darnell Washington, when he was healthy, really did give them kind of a different vibe on that offense, and they lose a couple key players to the NFL draft off that offensive line. But they bring in Dominic Lovett. I think the receiving core will be better. You still have Bowers chuck the ball around too. But I think it's going to be the guy that chucks to the receivers, having more of an edge here, actually.
I mean, I think it's got to be Beck. Vandagriff, I know is highly rated. He's only played like 20 snaps in college. And that's the other thing. Like Carson Beck, I've seen play. And granted, when Carson Beck has been in the game, things have typically been pretty comfortable for Georgia. Like it hasn't been high pressure situations. But when he's playing, he looks really good. Like he has played well and performed well. So just based on the fact that he's been the number 2, he has played well when they've put him into games. It's just hard for me to believe, even with the new OC and technically everybody getting a quote unquote fresh start, it's hard for me to think that Carson Beck isn't the guy.
Could Georgia do the Michigan thing where they treat the early part of the schedule as the preseason and they play all these guys?
Yeah.
And if so, when would you say on the schedule that preseason ends? Because I'm looking at this.
November?
Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, like they're
Auburn.
They're 3-score favorites really until the last day in September. I mean, UTM, Ball State, South Carolina in Athens are going to be, probably 17, 20-point favorites over those guys. UAB at home at Auburn. I think Danny nails it. Like you could potentially go 4 weeks rotating quarterbacks if you wanted to here, working them all through, figuring it out. And get a real feel for it. This is, and we shot a video on this a while back. Like this is one of the weird positions where coaches get it wrong because it's probably the least correlated to height, weight, speed, and it is hard to simulate in-game decision making, as I'm sure Danny could tell you. But if I'm Kirby Smart, unless there's a clear winner, I'm letting these guys run it out during September.
I just wonder too if they'll do that was really outside the box what Harbaugh did. I would have loved that in any competition, been like, you're going to give me the ones. I would have hated if I was the starter, like the guy that, if I'm Carson Beck and you're the guy coming in as the number one and you got to give up that start in week 2, I'd be a little bit irritated. But like, I think that is the truest way to get an evaluation rather than have the backups go in there in the second half and then it's just not a real simulation. But I think this one could play out too, because we miss all the time on guys because they're great practice players and they're great even in spring scrimmages because they're not live, they're not getting hit, or they're blown dead. You know, that's another aspect. Some of these guys being able to run, you know, you see those, they want to protect them. So, I mean, I wish I could tell you guys how many fights there have been where, oh, that was a sack. Oh, that wasn't a sack. And they're arguing about it. Meanwhile, you threw a touchdown pass because they didn't say it was a sack and you look great. It's like, yeah, this is awesome. You know, like you never really know until it's actually the lights are on and there's live bullets flying.
Carson Beck, I don't know how live these bullets are, but against South Carolina, comes into the game mop-up duty. And what does he do with mop-up duty? 5 for 6, 9.2 yards per attempt and a touchdown. Comes in from mop-up duty against Vanderbilt, 8 for 11, 98 yards and 2 touchdowns. The man has 3 touchdowns against SEC competition, never had a performance with a passing completion percentage against SEC opponents of lower than 70%. To Tom's point, the man looked good for sure. Coming up on the other side from the Georgia Bulldogs on over to Tuscaloosa for the quarterback battle between Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson, our expectations and how new offensive coordinator Tommy Rees, what his profile, how that might factor into our thoughts. Next.
To the ones who said we couldn't, that our dreams were too big.
We have to think big, really change things.
We carry fire in our hearts. So don't doubt us. And don't stand in our way. We are your leaders, your allies, your sisters.
All voices belong.
And we are phenomenal.
Anything is possible.
Women who move mountains. Explore the collection on Paramount Plus.
Georgia quarterback competitions really bring out some names. Y'all ever do the Remembering Dudes game? Just sit around and remember some dudes.
That's pretty much 90% of my life, Chip.
DeJuan Mathis. That was a player. That was a football player for the Georgia Bulldogs and the Temple Owls. Okay, the Alabama Crimson Tide. We got to see Jalen Milroe a little bit when Bryce Young got hurt last year. He had the start in the full game against Texas A&M. He came in against Arkansas, prevented what looked like it was a little bit of a hairy situation against the Razorbacks. His competition here primarily is going to be Ty Simpson, the former 5-star prospect. Did not see much significant action last year. And as we mentioned before the break, Tommy Rees is the new offensive coordinator. It's an Alabama offense, and I'll just repeat this again because it stood out to me. Nick Saban is sending the message either to us, his team, or both, that he feels confident in a lot of pieces, and the quarterback position is where he needs to see some development. I think that's a challenge to both the players here. He's trying to motivate and push them. But if that assessment is correct, then this is a very, very important battle because of what it might mean for the SEC title race. So how are we feeling right now about the Milroe-Simpson battle?
I really don't know what to think, right? I mean, Jalen Milroe last year, 5.5 yards per attempt is not going to work. I mean, if he gets the starting job and does that, he's getting benched, right? So like that's not good enough to play for a team that has goals like Alabama has. On the other side, Simpson is a guy who does have nice tools, and he was a 5-star in the 2021 class. That 2021 class is also the class that was, coming off the COVID year, and I put less stock personally in star ratings across the entire industry following the COVID year, just like a lot of those early draft takes from that year, right? It was just there were a disparate range of outcomes there compared to normal. My guess here is that Tommy Rees will go with Simpson because he's more of a passer, unless Milroe has taken a step throwing the ball that I'm not aware of, and maybe he has. But I kind of lean Simpson.
What's most interesting about this quarterback battle to me is kind of like what you were saying there, bud. We don't really know. This is what, like, the previous ones we've talked about with Texas and Georgia, we don't know, but we kind of know. It's not hard to figure out because of the experience. But the other thing, too, like, Alabama didn't get a transfer quarterback this year, which suggests, hey, they were comfortable with their QB room. But did they go after any transfers and just not get them, or did they just not? Were they not interested at all?
I don't think that they pursued any transfers to my knowledge. Now, there was a rumor going around that, like,
Drake May.
if Drake May wanted to bounce, then, and look, obviously Nick Saban would be an idiot to say no to Drake May if he did want to leave North Carolina. But, Drake May already said no to those guys one time as a recruit, right?
Yeah. So if we take that for what it is and say they didn't go after, clearly they might not know who the starter is, but they're comfortable with their options. But I'm with you in that I think based on what I have seen from Tommy Rees at Notre Dame, Ty Simpson is probably a better fit. But I have also seen Tommy Rees with quarterbacks who are more mobile than they are passers at that point in their career and have success with them. So I don't know which way this is going to go. I think that when we look at all these QB battles at like the bigger programs like the national title contenders, this is probably the one that I would have to say is the biggest coin flip. Like, I genuinely have no idea. I think this will be a legit competition in the spring, in the summer, and into the fall.
I think so too. I would lean towards Simpson just because the style of play. But again, like we've said this before, the guy who's been the backup and played the most, I do think is in the driver's seat. But again, kind of similar to some other situations too. You have a new offensive coordinator. So some of those, that you earn that respect to the coaches who see you on game day, you're getting a new guy in there. So I think this probably is a pretty fair, battle that's going to take place. And this one, unlike Georgia, they've got Middle Tennessee week 1, then they've got Texas week 2 at home. Like, they kind of do have to figure this one out. And I mean, we've also seen Alabama miss on quarterbacks before too and change mid-season and find a guy. Who was it when they were playing? What's the most? Who'd they start against USC? Didn't they screw that one up? And then was
Jalen
that one
Hurts did not start against USC?
Oh,
came
it was
in that game and took over, right?
Right.
The guy that had like a serious frat boy name. Right. I'm trying to think. It was like really
Chad. Was it Chad?
I'm sure the Chad I remember. It wasn't Blake Barnett. It was somebody else above him as well. It was the chat's gonna chime in on this. Because Barnett played in that game too. Cooper Bateman.
There we go.
Cooper Bateman.
Cooper Bateman and Blake Barnett both played in that game, but it was Jalen Hurts who came in and took it over and won that job, leading Alabama to a 52-6 win in a battle of iconic big brands, neutral field, big old national television spotlight. Bama just pasted them.
It wasn't even 5 minutes ago if Chip was asking us if we ever played Remember Some Dudes. And now here we are playing Remember Some Dudes. Cooper Bateman.
You remember
Blake Barnett. Some dudes.
Y'all remember it was so funny. Tom was talking about how back in the day you had to watch Alabama, play against all these FCS teams and win 50-0. And in 2016, Alabama played USC and won 52-6. But I need your help here. So
all right,
we've got Jermaine Burton back. We've got Ja'Cory Brooks back. I need you to help me wrap my mind around Kobe Prentice, Kendrick Law, Isaiah Bond, and maybe other names that you might want to throw out here, because the Alabama wide receiver position has been a position where we have had highly touted prospects fall short of expectations. Our expectations, the coaching staff's expectations, it has been relative to what it can be in the modern era. Let's say since 2015, Alabama's wide receivers have been relatively a weakness to our expectations of what Alabama's offense can be, particularly with Bryce Young at the quarterback position. So do we think that Alabama's wide receiver room is in a spot where that plays a big role in who ends up getting this job?
I think this receiver room is almost certainly improved. Now, there is a guy you didn't mention that everybody needs to know out there. His name is Malik Benson, and he is a junior college receiver, and apparently he is the goods. So I would expect him to come in and compete for a starting spot immediately at Bama. So when you put him with Burton and Brooks and Kobe Prentice, I think that's a really nice four. They have some young guys behind them, obviously, as Chip mentioned, with Law and Bond. And you also got Maryland tight end C.J. Dupree, who I thought was really good for Maryland and kind of an underrated get there in the transfer portal. Maybe not underrated. I think we have him rated pretty highly, but under talked about, right? Because he's not maybe a 70 catch guy, but he's a dude that can actually play as an inline Y, which I know obviously the new OC Tommy Rees will like to use. I think that the pass catchers here are better than what they were last year.
Hey, listen, and we haven't ticked off Notre Dame fans yet, but I mean, man, Tommy Rees to look at outside receivers like this. Wow, be able to just step up and feel like you could just really unlock aspects of the offense that haven't been there before.
And that's super commenter Michael's music entering the chat.
Uh-oh.
All right, so let's take a look at Ohio State. This one is another new-ish OC, not like a Tommy Rees outside hire. We've promoted Brian Hartline to the offensive coordinator position. Kyle McCord has been C.J. Stroud's primary backup for the last couple of years, and I don't know. Devin Brown is what I've got as the challenger here. Does this seem like a challenge to you? Do you believe that Kyle McCord is fighting for QB1 here in spring practice?
I think he's definitely got the advantage being in there, being in the system, being in the offense longer. I would give it to him, but I kind of want Devin Brown to win the job because Devin Brown wears number 33. And I just really want there to be a quarterback wearing number 33. That would be fun. So no offense to Kyle McCord, but I'm rooting for Devin Brown.
Did he switch?
Yeah. He switched this offseason to 33.
That's pretty awesome.
Oh, he did, because I'm looking at a picture of him in 15. Why did he switch?
I don't know, because it's
he's
cool
coming
to
for
be a
that job,
quarterback
baby.
wearing number
Or
33.
because he's switching positions. No quarterback wants to have 33. I can guarantee you that.
Oh.
What do we know about Devin Brown? Like, what is the book and like? I can read off a bio for you right now, but like, Bud, what was the read on him coming out of Utah?
Oh, big time tools. He's a guy who was kind of raw and then really, really took off his senior year of high school and just kept getting better and better and better. It ended up just outside 5-star status for us at 24/7 Sports. Like, good athlete, not somebody who's going to run for 1,500 yards or anything like that, but capable guy who can scramble around. He's not like one of these 6'6" dudes who really can't run. Really productive in high school. Does have a nice arm, and I mean, Ohio State is doing what you want to do. Like, they just keep stacking guys with a lot of talent and hope that it works out. I tend to think that Kyle McCord will beat out Devin Brown, but again, this is kind of what makes this offseason fun. For a lot of these, I wouldn't wager a whole lot on one guy over another necessarily, just with what we know, because they both have talent and both haven't really played all that much.
The tweet from Devin Brown when he announced the Twitter number, because you asked Danny.
Yeah.
He tweeted number 33, the OG QB number. First quarterback in Canton, Hall of Fame class of 63, slinging Sammy Baugh. That's why he switched to 33.
I think he's QB1. I just
Right?
Based on that, it has
have
to be, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciation of history. I mean, kids these days, they can't even remember 20 minutes ago. All right. To really find an old soul like Devin Brown out there really encourages you about the future of this country.
This is a Devin Brown podcast now.
It might be.
Kyle McCord,
I like
get in the
it.
portal and get
Now,
out of town.
How much do we factor in that Kyle McCord was the high school quarterback for Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Oh, 100%.
Like,
He was the,
do
he was
we
the
think that
Gatorade
matters?
player. Yes.
I
Okay.
think did it matter for Kyle McCord's rating as a recruit?
That's a good point.
Well, it did help him get named the Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Pennsylvania. Yes, that 100% has to factor into his statistics, which were prolific, and some of his rating coming out of high school. But no, it does feel like that. I wrote a story for CBSSports.com talking about quarterback battles, and I said that this is one that I'm just gonna get ahead of, because come Saturdays this fall, did you know they were high school teammates? Is going to be right up there with was it the McCoy and Shipley? Did you
McCoy
know
and
they're roommates?
Yep. Tebow and Riley Cooper.
Tebow and Riley Cooper.
There was a couple other ones like, did you know he has a twin that's on the same team? Like,
Yeah.
it's
Pouncies,
just
yeah.
yeah.
So
when the production crew goes out a little too long and they forget to kind of do the whole shot sheet, it's like, all right.
If we
This
can't
narrative
You know
have
about these
slinging-
battles?
What?
The thing about these battles I think was interesting. So CJ Stroud talking to at the combine, and I don't remember if it was on air or just off air. I cannot remember when we said this because it was kind of like funny, but also it stuck with him. We mentioned something how like wherever you go, it's gonna be hard to play, and he's like, there ain't no place to play like Columbus. Like, and he remembered the Minnesota game. He's like, I remember Minnesota. They were booing. Like, do you remember the first half against Minnesota, his first start?
Mhm.
And there was like Twitter was going nuts, like, get him out of there. He's a bum, like, get him out. And then he came back, bounced back the second half. But to me, that's a big part of why you want to see those guys go out there and play. Who can take that heat and criticism? Who can hear the boos? Because you'll hear them and respond, and it doesn't phase them. And which guys will collapse? Because I think that's a big, test that you have to pass as a quarterback, in order to survive those struggles.
The McCord, and this is coming in from Sue in the chat. McCord and Marvin Harrison Jr. won 3 straight state titles together, and McCord has the all-time passing record in Pennsylvania. That's a lot to go up against, but I think that our guy number 33, Devin Brown, slinging Sammy Brown, can go ahead and get it done. This is a Devin Brown podcast.
The one thing we haven't, the elephant in the room we're ignoring here, is Lamar Jackson a candidate for any of these jobs? Lamar Jackson
trade.
Lamar Jackson trade rumors. Lamar Jackson, a darn Schefter.
Yeah.
All right.
Wait, was that fake? That
Could
tweet?
Jalen Milroe be the next Lamar Jackson?
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay.
Let me write that down.
Put that in the topic bar.
Yeah, could Jalen Milroe be the next Lamar Jackson? All right, perhaps the most interesting quarterback battle to me is taking place in Oxford, Mississippi, where the Rebels have an incumbent starter from a team that got up to top 10 in the poll, started 7-0, but then ended the season on a losing streak. And Jackson Dart, that quarterback, the incumbent starter, now is looking across the field and he sees a 4-year starter at Oklahoma State named Spencer Sanders with a whole lot of wins to his name and a highly touted recruit initially signed to LSU named Walker Howard. Jackson Dart, Spencer Sanders, Walker Howard, 3 players that would be in the battle for starting quarterback at maybe half of the Power 5 schools, and yet here they all are here, all of them coming from the transfer portal to play for the Portal King Lane Kiffin. Spring game coming up on April 15th. Spring practice already underway. What do we make of this battle here for Ole Miss?
This one's the wildest of all of them, I think.
Right?
Yeah. It is so, and I could see them all playing all season long. It depends on how the season unfolds. I don't know. This one just reeks of somebody's not going to be happy, but they're stuck there. The timing of it, and for Spencer Sanders to go there and know what was in front of him tells me maybe he was told something, right? Like, I mean, I don't. This one to me, I think is going to be the wild one.
Spencer Sanders has 10,000 career passing yards and a 30-11 record as a starter.
And he
on the SEC
was available. Why?
Yeah.
Like,
he could have called back.
Is he actually hurt? Is he hurt with the shoulder thing? Could he actually come back to Oklahoma State? Did he want to go to Ole Miss, or did he want to go elsewhere? Maybe didn't have the option to do so. I don't know. I'm devaluing Spencer Sanders some from what his career says he is until I see otherwise. Like I feel like the last 6 or 7 months for him have not really been on a positive trajectory. So I'm not trying to like bash the kid. I'm just saying I think he may just be tapped out. But Lane Kiffin schemes everything open for you really well. And I think for that reason, I mean, Jackson Dart clearly did not play very well last year. And they probably got like the least amount out of that offense that they could with Dart. So I guess you can't rule out Sanders, and Howard feels like a long play for them. Right. Because they didn't get in on Rashada. Right. And they had a connection there and decided not to pursue it in the way that Florida pursued it. So maybe taking Walker Howard is your answer for not landing a 5-star type quarterback in Rashada last year.
And one of the interesting things about this thing to me, like besides the actual interest of the battle, in which I don't know who's going to win. If Spencer Sanders does win, because you mentioned all three of these kids have already transferred. We saw last week, like the NCAA, that they're putting out, they're trying to make the second transfer more difficult. Like you can't, there's got to be specific reasons. What happens if Spencer Sanders wins and Jackson Dart and Walker Howard are sitting there? Like, I think you're right, Bud. Walker Howard's probably a long-term play, so maybe he would be like, yeah, I'll sit for a year because Sanders is only going to be here a season, and then it's my job. But if you're Jackson Dart and are you the first one to really go with the second transfer and then be like, my mental health being the third string quarterback is too much for me to handle? Because that's what's going to happen. That's the excuse everybody's going to start using, because that's the only way they're going to be able to get through it, and you can't really question it.
Is that one of the loopholes that they have?
Yes.
Interesting.
So that's going to be getting abused like crazy.
That is until these things, until they get sued, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden it's going to be, oh well, it's kind of free agency again.
But even
I don't think it's going to hold up.
Even in the more archaic rules, if you wanted it bad enough, you could work it, right? And if something got blocked, there was usually either some kind of backlash or the threat of legal action that would often make a program step down.
Tom Mars is going to make a comeback.
I mean, isn't he already out here, still crushing it?
Oh, I do want to note this year on Georgia. Or excuse me, on Ole Miss, this is the year they draw Georgia from the East. So they always get Vandy, which is pretty helpful. But this year they actually have to play Georgia. So
I think they're all going to play.
But that Lane's just going to be pulling.
Yeah, I think it goes into the season. I don't know if any of them are good enough to really resonate.
Well, the best quarterback they had left.
Luke Altmaier
transferred to Illinois. Yeah.
I mean, the passing game for Ole Miss was not only not the strength, but it was not plus value. Jackson Dart throwing the ball in a 3rd and long situation is oh, wait a second. When they're not ahead of the chains and playing with tempo, and Quinshon Judkins is, getting us all off balance, and they've got all the different running backs and, keep them on their heels. All you needed to do was get one sack or one negative play. And all of a sudden, if Jackson Dart was facing 3rd and long, they were cooked. And Ole Miss offense can't do nothing with that. So I am interested.
Is Walker Howard is he a runner? But does he run much?
No. He's more of a thrower.
Yeah, that's another one.
How many XFL MVPs is Spencer Sanders going to win?
Is the XFL around next year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
I'm gonna say yeah. Are you kidding? They got the XFL, I think, is in better management hands right now. I think
who's running it now?
Jim
The
McCarron
Rock.
tearing it up.
Let's go. Battlehawks, I think. Coming up on the other side, get this ad ready to go. Coming up on the other side, we do have some true freshmen that are already on campus, already making waves. So let's dive into the chances that we see Dante Moore, Miko, and others as a starting quarterback in 2023. That and more next.
Get breaking news,
Big news coming out of the NFL today.
highlights, and instant reactions.
The largest final round comeback in tour championship history. We're down to the final 4.
I just want to take time to analyze greatness.
Talk winners and losers with a guy who's already a big winner.
CBS Sports HQ. It's all sports all day long.
Chip Kelly has an interesting quarterback battle going on. Unfortunately for fans, no spring game for us to be able to pick apart and dissect. But he does have some workouts going on. You got Colin Schlee, who transferred into the program from Kent State. You've got Ethan Garbers, who has been the backup to Dorian Thompson-Robinson for the last couple of years. And 5-star quarterback Dante Moore, flipped from Oregon on campus, taking part in the onboarding process and spring practice. Who do we think ends up being the QB1 for the Bruins?
You probably want it to be Dante Moore. I think if in an ideal world, Dante Moore would play well enough this spring, summer, and fall that he starts the year as your number 1. I think more realistic you're going to see Schlee or Garbers starting the year as the quarterback with Dante Moore being slowly worked in.
So they open with Coastal at San Diego State, North Carolina Central, and then they should win all those games. And then at Utah, September 23rd. So they do have a couple weeks to figure this out, much like some of these teams do. I mean, look, Dante Moore is really polished. So it wouldn't shock me if he won this. I think Schlee is probably going to be sold here as like the experienced guy who knows how to play. But Schlee to me is still a lot of potential. He showed some really nice things at Kent State, but he also got hurt and really wasn't a guy who was a week in, week out dependable dude. But he showed some real flashes. And Garbers is probably the guy that knows the offense the most and maybe doesn't have the biggest tools. But Moore was not one of those 5 stars who's 5 stars just based on like, hey, the tools are so damn good you have to put 5 stars on them because you'll look like an idiot in a couple of years if you don't. He was like a nice blend of tools, yes, but also feel for the game, experience at the high school level. I mean, he threw more passes in high school than just about anybody. The guy's played a lot of football. I mean, high school, but still played a lot. I'm going to go Dante Moore here.
I like it. I'm interested to see post DTR what they could be. Because DTR was like kind of there, but it kind of reminds me of like the Chris Ricks era at Florida State. Like you want him to take that next step, and you see like little flashes, and you're like, oh, that's what we're gonna go, and then you have a setback, and then it's like, oh, and it's just kind of always good but never great, and that's where I think should like UCLA fans probably are pretty excited about is, man, could we get a quarterback that, and I don't think it'll take that long to get better play at quarterback. So, but I think it's exciting if it's Dante Moore, but even if it's Schlee, I think just the stability, you could have more consistent quarterback play.
To your point, Danny, Chip Kelly has been the head coach of the UCLA Bruins for 56 games. Dorian Thompson-Robinson was the starting quarterback in 48 of those 56 games. The man has started games in 5 different seasons. It has been the entirety of the Chip Kelly era. And Chip Kelly, who we always associate with offense, and DTR has been, like to your point, for better or worse, like he has been the barometer for how that offense is going to perform. Garbers is interesting to me because he's and Bud, like, feel free to jump in here if I'm off on any of this, but 4-star player, initially signed to Washington, but he spent that 2020 COVID year in Washington, and he was like, this is awful. I don't want to be a part of this program. And then he, obviously it didn't go well for Washington. That's why they made the change. Then he joins up with UCLA prior to 2021, which means he has 2 seasons as a backup to DTR in the system. I just was digging around and thinking, like, why not Garbers? Like, maybe being overlooked just a little bit in this competition. And to your point, Bud, about Schlee, there's a lot of, it seems like NFL people are excited about what he could be, but the track record is up and down. I mean, the actual production and the statistics that he had for Kent State wasn't all awesome. He had some picks, it wasn't overwhelming in the amount of yards. So I think that Dante Moore, it's the exciting buzzy thing, but I'm not going to automatically say that it's more, and if not more, then it's Schlee, because I think that Garbers might be able to poke his head up in this competition as well.
Have we ever had this many Power 5 jobs that we felt were legitimately open?
I was going to add a mailbag question for Thursday, and or at least the thought started that says, how many quarterback jobs at the Power Conference level are actually fit like not a competition? Because it's less than half.
Oh, wait. So wait, how many P5 teams do we have now?
69.
Nice.
So we don't think that there's 35 where it's locked in?
Oh, definitely not.
Really?
Returning starters? I think we would.
Well, I mean, not because you've got a returning starter at Ole
Yours
Miss.
is a returning starter.
Yours is a returning starter. Like I think that where it is not a competition. For example, the Miami is in a place right now where they came out and they were like, Tyler Van Dyke is QB1. We are talking about him like he is the starter. Like, maybe that was going to be a little bit of question, but the messaging is not. I would guess that less than half of the 69 Power Conference programs are going in and with this is our guy, even if it's like a all jobs are open type situation.
Would it be a good podcast segment to just list every school?
Well, especially without
Clemson, yes. Florida State, yes.
especially without preparing, just to figure it out on the fly. That's what would be really good.
I'm saying it would be a good podcast.
Again,
This
I
actually is kind of how I did the list today, along with Chip. I went through the schools and was like, all right, who is the starting there, and just kind of
Well, I
figured
mean,
it
you
out
also
that way.
there's also ones on there where you're like Virginia Tech, and I was just so like yuck. I mean,
Yeah.
no offense to Grant Wells or Kyron Drones,
Wow.
but I think that my expectations for the Virginia Tech offense and the level of quarterback play that we got from the Virginia Tech Hokies last year just didn't enthuse me about what we're talking about in terms of the battle.
That's an important one, though.
I'm
mean-
not necessarily saying he's good, but I will say I am always entertained by watching a game in which Grant Wells is playing quarterback.
I will tell you, he's not good. Like, definitely not good at football.
Wow.
He's bad.
Wow,
They got to get that
Run
position
over
right,
by the
or he's going to get
bump
fired
bus
after
this
2-3
morning.
years.
All
Man,
right.
my AC broke, and I'm so ticked today. I had to haul this little like portable AC up to the office, and I'm sure the audio sounds like crap. And we only have a producer today, so maybe this will sound really bad in post too. No, I'm not here for Grant Wells.
Grant Wells didn't break the AC.
Yeah, go on.
No, I know, but like, if they get the same level of production at quarterback this year, does Brent Pry get year 3?
I don't know, man.
That was a disaster last year.
Yeah, that's and the problem is he's saying all the right things that are not like he is messaging that they need to get better. All through the back half of last season, he was talking about like, yeah, we are not like good in these areas. We need to get better. He is trying his darndest to be able to fix this thing and not just be a defensive coordinator who takes over a program and can't figure out how to field an offense. Because unfortunately, that's a stereotype and a narrative that it's going to develop if they come out and stink again on offense.
Have you guys seen this Hokie schedule, by the way?
But
This is like, if I'm Brent Pry, I want to punch my AD for scheduling this. So they start out 4 teams, and a couple of them are G5. But listen to this:
Eesh.
Old Dominion, Purdue, at Rutgers, at Marshall. Like, those are 4 teams where if you play poorly, you could lose. It's really not crazy to think that they're going to start 2-2 for the year in the non-con, and then you roll right into Pitt, Florida State, Wake. Maybe you get a breather with Syracuse, at Louisville, at Boston College, NC State, UVA. Like,
Listen, Jim Phillips has a lot of stuff he has to fix for the ACC. One of the first things he really needs to do is have a come to Jesus talk with his ADs about non-conference scheduling.
there's some of these ADs that should do this money grab stuff.
And don't forget ODU beat them last year too.
Right.
Yeah.
Has their number
Because they couldn't score any points, really.
Joe Milton was the starting quarterback for the Orange Bowl, but he is in spring practice with an extremely gifted and highly touted quarterback named Nico Iamaleava. Is Nico going to get this job out from Joe Milton's extremely strong arms?
I wonder if I can get my
we
Joe
don't know if
Milton
his
take on that
left
30
arm is
seconds.
that strong.
I've got to assume that as strong as his throwing arm is, if his other arm is not strong, then he would tip over. He would just not be able to walk.
Look, I think Joe Milton has a puncher's chance to hold on to this job, right? He's extremely strong. The arm it's probably the best in college football, right? I mean, like, you just don't see guys just flick the ball with their wrist and throw it 70 yards, and he does that. Sometimes he throws it to the other team. Sometimes he throws it into the stands, which has generally been the problem really throughout high school, right? Like, guy wasn't accurate in high school, wasn't accurate at Michigan, wasn't accurate so far in his career at Tennessee. But the upside is really, really there. And Nico is a dude who has awesome physical tools. I mean, one of the absolute best volleyball players in the country, just a freakish athlete, really good quarterback, productive guy. I think that just like based on how this staff is talking publicly, I think it's Milton. I think they think they've unlocked some things in him and that he's going to be better. But like, he's kind of the guy that like gets coaches fired because they believe in him, they believe in the tools, and all of a sudden, nope, they can't get it out of him, right? What can you do that Harbaugh couldn't, that other coaches couldn't, right? it's concerning when you have a career completion percentage just not able to throw strikes ever. But maybe he can get it together.
He played pretty good against Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I also think there's something where, you know, he was named starter before Hendon Hooker comes in there, and then you get benched and you kind of watch the other guy. And if you learn anything, it's like, I can make all those throws if I just make the decisions he did. Like maybe there's some confidence from watching somebody else just absolutely crush it in that system and make it look pretty easy. Like, hey, I can trust the system. I don't have to be the hero every single time. Also, what is Iamaleava? What's he weigh? Is there any aspect about him like looks like he's a $165? I mean, I know he's not, but he looks skinny. Is he ready for the pounding he's going to take yet?
I had him at 200. Yeah, 6'6", 200 pounds.
Yeah, but that's what he's listed.
Yeah.
I mean, I just seen video of him throwing.
200 is also
skinny.
For 6'6", 200 is pretty
skinny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks skinny. Like he looks like he needs to bulk up a little bit. And then there's Milton, who he's going to stand next to, who looks like, you know, he's jacked.
I think that the good thing here is like, is there any scheme out there that schemes things up more for the quarterback than Tennessee? I'm not going to call it a one-way system, but I think USC even asks more as far as processing than Tennessee does. Tennessee is just like, we're going to scheme one guy for you most of the time. You know, it's one of the truest forms of what they were running at Baylor.
First of all, like if you're Tennessee's baseball coach,
what
you see Joe Milton, don't you just kind of wonder, like, do you go to Josh Heupel and be like, can I just try something real quick? I want to see what this guy could do for an inning.
You know, Tennessee has that guy that throws like 103, right?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But if I could throw Joe Milton in there too with him, come on, my bullpen is shut down.
Listen, we are about player safety, and we cannot put batters in the box with Joe Milton on the mound. Okay,
I don't know, man. Like
player safety,
that is a psychological advantage because there is nothing hitters don't mind 100 so much as long as it's over the plate. But if they know you're throwing 100 and you have no idea where it's going, you're going to win that at bat because they're terrified. Yeah.
How about this quote? How about this quote? Why Joe Milton never played baseball? He said, you know, he's seen coaches like you, Tom, who said, I want to see him do it. Milton said, I threw the ball once when asked if he ever played baseball. And then my high school coach told me not to do it anymore. It was kind of one of those, let's try it out once. If you like it, you can stick to it. I did like it, but he told me I couldn't do it. He wanted me to finish playing football.
Oh, so it was his football coach who told me.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
I was probably doing 100, and the guy's like, no, we don't want to lose our starting quarterback.
Do a UCL surgery. Also, like Chip, you mentioned Joe Milton's got a very strong arm. Nico has very strong arms. He has to carry that bag around.
That also is going to be something that's going to be interesting when these battles play out. The pressure that comes from the collectives that are thinking they brought this player in. They didn't pay him to sit on the bench. That's going to be an interesting dynamic that unfolds.
I'm going to grab the wheel and then we'll open it up. But Cincinnati's going to be in the Big 12 this year. They're going to be led by Scott Satterfield, and they have a competition. Ben Bryant, a returning starter. Evan Prater, you know, highly touted prospect who we saw flashes of. And by flashes, I don't mean like a lot of awesome things. Like literally he got in the game for little bits of time. And then Emory Jones. Dude, remembering Emory Jones in the Cincinnati quarterback battle. Ben Bryant, Evan Prater, Emory Jones. What are we expecting from the Cincinnati quarterback battle?
I feel like old guys are just yelling at Emory Jones to go get a job. Like really, like you're still in college football. But I mean, he's on scholarship. It's not costing anything, right? Like you're not racking up debt doing it. So might as well keep having fun if you can for free. That's pretty awesome. Like Prater was just straight bad last year, right? Like
so disappointing.
Yeah, it really was. I thought he had tools and just doesn't seem to process. Ben Bryant is not a difference maker. Emory Jones got benched for a true freshman there at Arizona State. It really was bad and wasn't any good at Florida really. So I'm not real high on this quarterback room. I don't know if that's evident by my comments here, but I am really high on their defense. So my guess here, because Scott Satterfield is not going to want to start the first year in the Big 12 by missing a bowl, and they have a non-conference schedule which has 2 pretty winnable games in Miami, Ohio, and Eastern Kentucky, and then they have to play at Pitt, in which they'll be an underdog. They do miss Texas. They have to play Oklahoma, and that's one of their home games, which kind of stinks. You think you'd rather play your big dog games on the road, but maybe they pick the guy who is just most capable of taking care of the football and throwing off play action and playing off what should be, I think, a pretty salty defense, even with the loss of Ivan Pace. So I don't know. These names are not really confidence inspiring for me right now.
I'm taking a deliberate approach where I'm going to be like, all right, with Sat, because I like this teams at App State. I'm taking the deliberate approach of saying, maybe Louisville just didn't work, whatever reason, just was never going right. The vibes were always off. I'm going to write that off. I'm going to give him a chance at Cincinnati here. But I'm with you, bud. This quarterback room does not inspire a ton of confidence in me for Cincinnati in 2023. So if I'm Scott Satterfield, taking over the program first year, replacing a guy who literally took them to the college football playoff, had a lot of success when they were still a G5, going into the Big 12, Ben Bryant, okay. Emory Jones, okay. Evan Prater, disappointing last year, but still young. There's still a chance that I can get something out of him. It's my first year. I know that Cincinnati fans probably aren't going to want to go this way, but I wouldn't have high expectations for the Bearcats first year in the Big 12 with this as your quarterback situation. So I would go with Prater. I'm probably going to take some lumps in year 1, but I get some, I've still got time on my side. I would rather develop him, see what I've got, because Jones and Bryant aren't going to be there for year 2 anyway. And if Prater doesn't work, then I will be in the transfer portal this offseason looking for somebody to come in as competition. So that is the route I would probably be looking to go if I'm Scott Satterfield.
What is Prater? Did he have a red shirt?
I thought he did.
Because he enrolled in 20. So,
he's a senior then.
If he hasn't redshirted, yeah. But he would get the COVID year. Right? 2021,
yeah.
22. Yeah.
How about if you're Scott Satterfield? So you're coming into the Big 12, your first offensive coordinator hire, you go get Tom Manning, somebody who's got a lot of experience at Iowa State. He and Matt Campbell ended up parting ways at the end of the 2022 season. But on its face, I was like, okay, that seems to make sense. You're stepping into this league, hiring Tom Manning. That is at least going to help you be able to game plan against these Big 12 defenses and figure out what you need to do. Then Tom Manning leaves. He was on the job for about a month and a half, goes and takes a job with the Indianapolis Colts. And so to replace him, Scott Satterfield hires Brad Glenn, who was, just to really bring it right back to where we were with Virginia Tech, the passing game coordinator for the Virginia Tech Hokies last season. However, he was also with Scott Satterfield back at App State from 2005 to 2011. So they won some national championships during that time at the FCS level. So you take it both ways. On one hand, you're hiring the quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator for Virginia Tech last season. That's going to bum you out, but you're also bringing in somebody with championship experience coaching alongside Satterfield. So there's that's where you're at right now with Brad Glenn as your offensive coordinator overseeing this battle. All right, where else do you want to turn our attention in the little time we got left?
What about the Florida situation? You bring in Graham Mertz as a transfer. You had Rashada. That all happened. And you've also got Jack Miller, who transferred in from Ohio State last year. Is that a legit QB battle, or do you think Graham Mertz is the guy who was brought in to be like the number 2, and then after Rashada happens, now he's the prerequisite number 1? Because you've had a year with Miller. You know exactly who you have, and you are still pretty active in the market this offseason looking for new names.
I mean, I think that they wanted to get Michael Pratt from Tulane. I think that's very well known within the industry, and that he ended up staying. So I think they had to get somebody to go out and start. I don't know if I really trust Jack Miller, to be honest. I don't think he's actually a guy that can play in the SEC. If they really thought he would you go out and get Graham Mertz? I'm skeptical of that. Reports out of practice with Graham Mertz have been sort of mixed so far, to put it kindly.
It's Graham Mertz.
Yeah, I think it's still Graham Mertz. I would be very surprised if he didn't win the job, but I don't know that he has. That there's just no doubt that he's the guy right now. Maybe he is. By the way, looks like their lineman who they got from Baylor. I'm forgetting the kid's name. Really good player from Baylor may not be transferring, but we still have to see if he's hurt or not. But just chasing down the rumors there. So that's kind of an important situation to watch because we talked about Florida's O-line depth before that went down that night, and I was like, ooh, that's kind of bad.
Is Brennan Armstrong going to be the starter at NC State?
I was going to ask you this. I mean,
You're the one in Raleigh. You tell us.
if he's not, is MJ Morris dipping?
You mean if he is MJ
Excuse me, if he
Morris?
wins the job, does MJ Morris stick around?
I think it is going to be pitched to MJ Morris that we would like to have you both to start the season. I think that's whether my expectation is that Brennan Armstrong is the QB1, but also with Robert and I being, really creative, I would not be surprised if NC State uses multiple quarterbacks. Right? Or lets it play out into the season, at least.
I think Armstrong comes in, reunites with Anai. Odds are he's going to be starting early, but I wouldn't be surprised if MJ Morris is getting plenty of snaps and then maybe is the starter by the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, they do have Notre Dame in week 2, which is going to be very dicey, but at least they've got that game at home. The rest of the early season schedule, you start at UConn. Wow.
Or maybe Brendan Armstrong follows the Keaton Thompson path and becomes their number 1 wide receiver.
I think that MJ Morris was impressive in what he showed us last year, and his decision to, stick around, and also the way that they treated some of his injury issues. Remember where it was like, we thought he was coming back. No, actually we're, shutting this down. We're going to let Ben Finley take over. It definitely had the sense of we are letting you know that we are putting your health as a top priority. If we think there's going to be any further injury, we don't want that to happen because you are a part of the future. I don't think they're going to sell out that entire future just for 1 year of Brennan Armstrong, especially when Armstrong wasn't even great last year. So I would give Armstrong the edge here, but then make sure whatever you do that Morris as your QB1 for 2024 is still ready to go.
All right. Sorry, Tom. How about the Mountaineers? In celebration, well, not celebration, but in remembrance of Coca being gone, Garrett Green, I think, is the dude over Nico Marchio.
There are too many Garretts and Gunners out in these streets. Garrett Green at West Virginia, Garrett Rangel at Oklahoma State, Garrett Rangel against Gunnar Gundy.
Yeah, like where did the Gunner thing start? Like, why did that name become so popular? Like, there's always you saw Jalen became a name all of a sudden in the early mid-90s because of Jalen Rose in Michigan in the Fab Five. When did the Gunner thing start? What was the inspiration there? Because there's like a billion of them now.
I don't know. There's a crew and a cruise on my son's 3-year-old T-ball team, by the way, which is extremely confusing.
Gunner, dog name. You got a dog name.
Here, Gunner. Come here, Gunner.
Come here. I mean, like the Oklahoma State quarterback situation is kind of bleak, right?
Yes.
I'm not enthused by it. I don't think that it's necessarily going to be a strength through and through. West Virginia, I've got no real good read on that one. There's some. I believe Tyler Shuck. I mean, if healthy, he's definitely going to be there, right?
At Texas Tech, so. Probably, yeah.
There's some spots where there is a quarterback battle, but it is not a quarterback battle that has me being like, ooh, wow, whoever wins this is really, beating out the competition, and I am ready to watch this offense in the upcoming season. I'm ready to be proven wrong about that in the fall, but that one at West Virginia and the one at Oklahoma State right now do not seem to be resonating as high on my big board. Any others? Bud, you look miserable. Can we? You just want to get out of here? We need to fix this AC.
Yeah, I got to make some phone calls.
Okay. We will be back. Hey, listen, this was a show idea from our own Danny Cannell. He said, you know what? We need to sit down and remind everyone and remind ourselves of what we're going to be looking at in terms of the 2023 season, because it's going to be different. We just talked about Cincinnati's going to be in the Big 12. So a full conference realignment reset heading into 2023, breaking down some of the interesting moves, some of the new matchups, rivalry schedules, and the like. Should be a fun time to help get us repositioned and refocused on the season ahead. Again, spring ball underway, and a lot of good stuff to be able to get to within college football. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fornelli. You can follow him at Bud Elliott 3. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank God I'm not named Gunner.
See y'all.